I can't believe it. I've been making these French lessons on YouTube for more than 10 years now, and I have never covered one of the most important and well-known characters in French culture. Until now. Yes, it is finally time for me to talk about Le Petit Prince. I am sure you heard about it, and if you haven't, then I am delighted to introduce it to you. This short story has been translated into more than 301 languages and dialects, and it has been adapted into movies, plays, ballet, and even an opera. Today, I want to tell you a little bit more about Le Petit Prince, but I also want to break down the most important vocabulary that you need to know to really understand the story. Of course, I will teach you the correct pronunciation of these words so you can start using them in your own French conversations as well. Without further ado, let's dive into this literary classic. Le Petit Prince is a novella with a special place in French culture. It is a tale about life, about being a child, about growing up, about responsibility, about making friends and losing them. It is profound and poetic. It was written by French pilot Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and was first published in 1943 in New York. But it couldn't be published in France until 1946, after the mysterious crash and death of its author. By the way, as a war hero who didn't get involved in the Vichy regime and who wrote a great tale for children, Saint-Ex, as he's often called, soon became a very popular person in the French schooling system. We all read at least parts of Le Petit Prince during our school years, and there are more than 400 schools called Saint-Exupéry, and my local middle school was even called Le Collège Saint-Exupéry. Now, I think Le Petit Prince is so popular in school because it is short, easy to read, and with beautiful illustrations, but still manages to share poetic observation and some deep insight on human life and growing up. And for the same reasons, it became a giant hit, a colossal bestseller all around the world. And it got a lot of adaptations, obviously. Actually, my first contact with Le Petit Prince was an audio recording of an old cassette at home, the 1954 version with the warm voice of French theatre comedian Gérard Philippe.
J'étais très occupé à essayer de dévisser un boulon trop serré de mon moteur. J'étais très soucieux car ma panne commençait de m'apparaître comme très grave. Et l'eau à boire qui s'épuisait me faisait craindre le pire.
Un mouton, ça mange les arbustes?
Oui.
Even hearing it now gives me goosebumps. And there's been several audiobooks since, and a movie, of course.
Tu seras pour moi unique au monde. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux.
And une comédie musicale, a musical.
N'importe où droit devant lui.
Jamais il ne se perdra.
And a theme park, and TV shows, and much more, including un billet de 50 francs, a French banknote, and other adaptations from all around the world. Because Le Petit Prince is also a success abroad, obviously. It was first published in the US, remember? So it's been international since the beginning. Nowadays, it's been translated in more than 400 languages and dialects, and it is the second most translated book of all time, second only to the Bible. That's what makes Le Petit Prince a good way to learn a language. It is deep, but it stays relatively easy to read, and you can easily have a French version and a version in your language to check out what you didn't understand. There are even bilingual versions with both languages facing each other on the page. They are a very cool tool to help you learn French and a great book to read. Some of its vocabulary is especially interesting, and this is what I want to talk about today. Follow along with your own version, that's probably in your library. So the first thing that strike in Le Petit Prince are les aquarelles. Les aquarelles, the watercolor paintings by Saint-Exupéry himself. They appear all throughout the book and they're a part of the story. You have your famous ones like le chapeau, the hat, that is also, remember, un éléphant dans un boa, an elephant in a boa snake. Or more ambitious ones like les baobab, the baobab trees. All in all, they are gorgeous. Now, I am not going to spoil the whole story and even less the ending if you don't know it already. It is a tale about a pilot with a crashed plane in the desert who meets a strange little boy. The pilot then listens to the boy's story and infers the rest. The little boy comes from an asteroid and he has traveled through the planets until he found Earth. But before all that, we have their first meeting. It is a first contact, if you will. And it is the most famous line in the book.
S'il vous plaît, dessine-moi un mouton.
S'il vous plaît, dessine-moi un mouton. S'il vous plaît. Dessine-moi un mouton.
Now, what's interesting with that line and what makes it so striking is a subtlety that doesn't translate well. The little prince switches from vous to tu. S'il vous plaît is vous voyez, using the plural vous to mean you, even in the singular. This is what children use in order to address adults that they don't know. It is a sign of respect and good manners. But right after that, he doesn't say dessinez-moi, which is the right conjugation with vous. No, he says dessine-moi un mouton. Dessine here is the imperative form of tu. It is tutoyer. For French ears, we immediately pick this up, and it is part of the Little Prince's charm. Tu is for friends and family, or for children talking to other children, or to their family like their mom and dad. So we have this little boy that comes out of nowhere in the middle of the desert and shows that he knows about good manners, but he still wants to be friends. Maybe he's lost and afraid and wants a parent, or maybe he sees the pilot as a fellow child at heart. And it is a bit of all three, all this packed in one single sentence. During the next few days, the little prince reveals some details about his travels. He apparently comes from an asteroid and met some people in different planets, for instance.
Je connais une planète où il y a un monsieur cramoisi. Il n'a jamais respiré une fleur. Il n'a jamais regardé une étoile. Il n'a jamais aimé personne. Il n'a jamais rien fait d'autre que des additions. Et toute la journée, il répète comme toi, je suis un homme sérieux, je suis un homme sérieux. Et ça le fait gonfler d'orgueil. Mais ce n'est pas un homme, c'est un champignon.
Un quoi?
Un champignon.
In this small random passage, we already get some fine French vocabulary, like un monsieur. Un monsieur is literally a mister. It is a special way to say a man or a respectable man, but in a bit of a childish way. Cramoisi means crimson. It is a mix of red and purple that is often used in novels when people sweat a lot or they're angry. More relevant to your everyday life in France, though, we have un champignon. Un champignon is a mushroom, like un champignon de Paris, for instance. And finally, we have l'orgueil. L'orgueil is pride, l'orgueil. It is not la fierté which is being proud of something. It is more in the sense of the scene of pride, of thinking that you are better than everyone else. The adjective is orgueilleux, orgueilleuse, orgueilleux, orgueilleuse for prideful. Here what you can notice is that the X at the end of orgueilleux is silent. We have a E sound at the end. And it becomes euse in the feminine form, euse. But mostly the most difficult part is the gueule with the œil sound, as in écureuil, squirrel. It is a very tricky sound, and you will find a full lesson on this topic for free on my blog post for today's video. The word orgueilleux, orgueilleuse is a very good test of unusual French sounds. So your turn now. Orgueil, orgueilleux, orgueilleuse. Good. And we find this adjective later when the little prince talks about his rose back home. And he says, c'était une fleur tellement orgueilleuse. She was such a proud flower. C'était une fleur tellement orgueilleuse. In the story for the prince, the rose's pride is both charming and annoying because they're basically in a passionate relationship and yet it is not entirely healthy. We think that the flower character was inspired by the author's wife, the artist Consuelo de Saint-Exupéry. Just like the prince and his rose, it seems like they dearly loved each other, even though their relationship was tarnished by the fact that he was away a lot, and also infidelities on both sides. We might see a metaphor for that when the prince arrives on Earth and sees un jardin, a whole garden full of roses. He's sad to discover that his rose might not be so unique after all.
I thought I was rich. I thought I had the most unique flower in all the world. But all I had was a common rose.
But on the very next chapter, he learns the central moral of this tale. That's when he meets le renard, the fox, who is not apprivoisé. Apprivoisé. Tu cherches des poules? Non, dit le petit prince. Je cherche des amis. Qu'est-ce que signifie apprivoiser? C'est une chose trop oubliée, dit le renard. Ça signifie créer des liens. Créer des liens? Bien sûr, dit le renard. Tu n'es encore pour moi qu'un petit garçon tout semblable à 100 000 petits garçons, et je n'ai pas besoin de toi, et tu n'as pas besoin de moi non plus. Je ne suis pour toi qu'un renard semblable à 100 000 renards. Mais, si tu m'apprivoises, nous aurons besoin l'un de l'autre. Tu seras pour moi unique au monde, je serai pour toi unique au monde.
Et puis regarde, tu vois là-bas les champs de blé?
Oui.
Je ne mange pas de pain, le blé pour moi est inutile. Les champs de blé ne me rappellent rien. Et ça, c'est triste. Mais tu as des cheveux couleur d'or. Alors ce sera merveilleux quand tu m'auras apprivoisé. Le blé qui est doré me fera souvenir de toi. Et j'aimerais le bruit du vent dans le blé.
This central poem from the fox is to me the heart of Le Petit Prince. And it is written with simple repeating vocabulary like les champs de blé, the wheat fields. You will see them a lot in French countryside. Or other plants like les champs de lavande, the lavender field in Provence. But the central word here, of course, is apprivoiser. Apprivoiser. It doesn't have a clear translation in English. It means tamed, as in un lion apprivoisé, a tamed lion. But it is not as aggressive. It doesn't imply whips and chains. It is more of a mutual seduction, a slowly building trust and friendship. And here the fox gives us another angle to look at that word. He describes apprivoiser as the slow transformation of a stranger like many others into a unique relationship, of someone that becomes special thanks to the time you spent with them. And that is a central part of how French people view friendship as well. Now, I won't get into the ending of the story, but I will close with the last message of the fox. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur, l'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur, l'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux.
It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye.
This sentence can have a lot of weight and an existentialist meaning, but for now, I will only concentrate on the pronunciation. Le cœur is the heart. You have le E dans l'eau with the sound E. le cœur, le cœur. Then we have les yeux, the eyes. Here what you can notice is the y sound and also la liaison between le and y, and it makes the s at the end of le sound like a the sound, les yeux. And we have a silent x at the end and a e sound in the middle. That's a lot. So repeat after me, les yeux. Good. This is a plural of un œil, an eye. That sounds like œil, the sound that we saw before. Un œil, des yeux is a very famous irregular plural in French. So now let's review some of the vocabulary that we saw together. First, we have le collège. Le collège is the middle school. Repeat after me. Le collège. Le collège. Le collège. Then we have une aquarelle. Une aquarelle is a watercolor painting. We have a wa sound. Aqua, qua, not aka, aqua. Repeat after me. Une aquarelle. Une aquarelle. Une aquarelle. Then we have un mouton for a sheep. Un mouton with the on sound, the nasal on. Repeat after me. Un mouton. Un mouton. Then un champignon with the same on sound and a ñ sound in the middle. Champignon, champignon. For a mushroom, repeat after me. Un champignon. Un champignon. Un champignon. Good. Then we have l'orgueil, orgueilleux, orgueilleuse. Remember this œil sound in l'orgueil for pride, in a bad way or prideful. Repeat after me. L'orgueil, orgueilleux, orgueilleuse. Good. Then un jardin for a garden with the nasal un sound. Un jardin. Un jardin. Un jardin. And after that, the magnificent apprivoisé, which means kind of tamed, but more of a mutual trust. Apprivoisé. Good, with the wa sound in the middle. Apprivoisé. Apprivoisé. Les champs de blé with the silent P and the silent S at the end of champ for the wheat fields. Les champs de blé. Les champs de blé. And at last, le cœur et les yeux. The heart and the eyes. Remember the E dans l'eau, the E sound in cœur and the silent X at the end of yeux. Le cœur et les yeux. Le cœur et les yeux. Le cœur et les yeux. Good. And now you are ready to read the book in French by yourself. Tell me if you liked it in the comments below. Or if you already know the book, you can get to the next lesson with me, such as my thoughts on French book culture in a lesson that is all in French, or more about how French people build their friendships differently than in the US, or a lesson on this tricky œil sound with a slow breakdown of the pronunciation. Click right here on your screen and I will see you in the next video. Allez, salut!